We're really thrilled to have Eric with us here today to lead our session on how can I help create diverse and inclusive communities for seniors. Eric is a leader and a pioneer in this subject, and he leads by example. We're really excited to have him here with us today. A little bit about Eric. Throughout his professional career, he has volunteered with nonprofit and social development programs. Following his 2007 retirement from the manufacturing sector, he was able to increase his community involvement and obtained a Bachelor of Social Work degree as one of his retirement projects. He combined social work skills with his previous management, governance, and volunteer experience to be engaged in the community. He's primarily focused on social justice issues, predominantly in the areas of at-risk and in care, youth, marginalized seniors, and sexual and gender minority populations. Eric, we're so happy to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for coming along. I just it says from the Edmonton Pride Seniors Group, just want to give a little bit of background about that and how it applies to today's conversation. And so the ESPG was created in 2013, led by Michael Fair, the former city councillor. And it's just a group of community volunteers who said, we want to advocate for safe and inclusive housing for LGBTQ seniors. So focus on education to senior housing providers and community centers. And also, we are now currently working on the development of a standalone inclusive seniors housing complex. But in doing the research into the life of experiences of LGBTQ seniors, we found so many similarities with other marginalized groups. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk about creating safe and inclusive spaces for everyone. So with that, we'll start. So I'm going to start with saying every senior is beautiful. We're all beautiful, and we all have the right to dream. And normally when I talk to people and they say, what is your dream? There's so many basic issues that people talk about as we get older, but a lot of them, it seems to gel down to want to be able to say, here's who I am, here's what I expect. And what I expect is to be treated with respect and not to be afraid, because it wasn't always that way. So many marginalized seniors have negative experiences from the past that still make them cringe many years later. So everyone has a right to safety and respect, and they're of prime importance, my feeling anyways. So there's something called social determinants of health, and I've got a long list on the screen here, and I'll just chat about them. But we all want to be healthy and have a healthy retirement. And a lot of times what we say is, well, you know, in order to achieve that, we just have to strive for personal health by watching what we eat, getting enough exercise, and socializing with other people. But there are these other factors that enter into how our health is determined, in addition to what we can do. And some of those are what our income and the social status are, our education, what experiences we've had in childhood and young adulthood, what social supports we have, and what coping skills we have to deal in different social situations, which are quite important. And then, of course, healthy behaviors and access to health services, but also affecting us, our health in later life, as what our gender is, what culture we've been raised in, and what race we are, and if we've experienced racism. And so all of those are very, very important. And now, many people say, I don't have a prejudiced bone in my body, but they should be adding that I know of, because implicit bias is there for everybody. It involves various degrees of stereotyping or prejudice or discrimination that occur below our conscious level. And when we talk about it, it's very important to understand that it causes us to look at different people in different ways, people who are not the same as us, who don't have the same social background, who don't have the same cultural background. And so the effect that it has on my holder as a holder of bias, is that I tend to look at people a different way. And it can be a negative view that I have of them. And for the person who is targeted by my bias, well, it can be less than pleasant, because they are not being treated as a whole person, as being a complete unit. I'm focusing in on one element, which may make them feel very, very uncomfortable. So from the biases, people sometimes experience bullying. And this is one that I always have to have a serious chat about with people, is because the common assumption is that bullying only happens to youth. It only happens on school and playgrounds, and that only children bully. Adults have relationship issues. And the real truth is that bullying happens across the lifespan. And in essence, it's being forced by power or threat of ridicule to do something that you don't want to do. And that's it. If somebody is putting you in a position of you feeling forced to do something that goes against your grain, that makes you feel belittled, then you're being bullied, and it doesn't matter how old you are. So it can be by threats of physical violence, or verbal violence, or actions. And frequently in seniors communities, this bullying can happen by social exclusion. For example, don't invite Mary, I don't like her. If you're friends with her, you can't be friends with me. So that forcing you into a position based on somebody else's views. And gossip and rumor can also be part of it. Did you hear what John did the other night? Well, I don't know about that. So it can be name calling or belligerently shouting until the other person backs down. And then, until forcing people to go my way, or go along with me and my views, whether they want to or not. And one of the things is that if somebody is still, we know that bullying in children does not go away unless there's an intervention. And so if somebody is still a bully at 75 or 85, you can be assured that they've had 70 years of perfecting their craft so that they can bully without being called out for it. And what it results in is a loss of self-esteem, in social exclusion, and feeling that I'm not welcome here, so why would I go where I'm not welcome? A negative overall social atmosphere. And as I say, it does not just go away, it requires intervention and advocacy. Some people have said, well, if there's bullying occurring in a seniors complex or in a community setting, what we need is mediation. Well, mediation implies that there's change that has to be made on both sides. In the case of bullying, what we need to do is make a clear statement that bullying is wrong, period. It has to stop. It has nothing to do with the actions of the target. So I want to move that concept forward. And so why do we want to have a conversation around bullying? Because bullying frequently targets people because of their ethnicity, their color, their race, their health, or their sexuality. And everybody is vulnerable in one way or another. You just have to find the right vulnerability, and bullies are really good at finding that right vulnerability. And yes, we are there. And so it's important to recognize for what it is. But because this project was initially formed to address the issues of LGBTQ seniors, I'll spend a few minutes talking directly on that issue. We all, you and I all grew up in a period of strict gender roles and rules against same-sex attraction. And many LGBTQ seniors had to struggle to come to terms with who they are, many much later in life. And frequently those who didn't have to address issues around their sexuality never had an opportunity to question the messages that they received from social media and so on. And many LGBTQ seniors are an invisible minority. And they've had a lifetime, and because of that invisibility, they've had a lifetime of hearing negative comments or slurs about people like them. And these slurs and negative comments may have come from family or friends or coworkers. So this also, these negative comments that we've heard and the messages that we've seen from the press and social media cause something called internalized homophobia or self-hate, simply because who we are. And I'm going to display some images of that display this, particularly around LGBTQ seniors. And so just to quickly talk about them. And some of these on homosexuality, the messages that come across are they're sinners. The devil is gay, or it's Satan's stud. It's a choice. Homosexuality can be cured. It's shameful. For every star of fame, there's a tale of shame. It's about sex. It's not about love. And it's that people are sick, creepy, predators, any other description that comes to mind. And it clearly depicts the social values of the time, and that many LGBTQ seniors still bear the scars of that era. Now, straight seniors who also were exposed to the same attitudes had no reason to question the information. So many still hold these views. In fact, I had a conversation about a month ago with someone who told me that they had never met a gay man, but they didn't need to because they knew what they were like. And I sort of chuckled. I said, well, today's a new experience for you because you've met a gay man here who is not a social predator, who just wants to live a happy life. So similarly, for lesbians and trans individuals, they were also shamed by society, frequently by these trashy pulp fiction type novels. And the message was equally clear that this is not viewed as an acceptable lifestyle to be accepted in the mainstream society. And I just want to talk about lifestyle for a second, because to this day, the term lifestyle is frequently used as a descriptor to indicate that sexuality is a choice. It's not an orientation. And then finally, for trans individuals, like I never heard the term transgender until well into the 90s, but it was always looked at as really a perversion of human sexuality. And it goes with the implication that something was wrong, a choice, or it's sinful. So those are just some of the things that we grew up with. And I think that particularly on the LGBTQ senior side, but for other people, the messages that they receive from the media and from the community were also damaging. You don't have to look very far back in history. And I'm very, very unfortunate to have seen earlier this year and last year, people of Chinese origin being attacked on the street just because they happen to be Chinese. So all of these factors can lead to social isolation. And who gets affected by social isolation is a spectrum. And from one end, we have people who are completely integrated, don't feel isolated, feel welcome and at home in any situation. Next, we have people who have gradually become isolated over time, as well as those who experience isolation because of recent unexpected events. And those can be things like the loss of a job, a home, and treatment that they've received. And then finally, there are on the far end of the continuum are the people who have been isolated all of their lives. And these three profiles can be found among all marginalized seniors and have a bearing on the steps that need to be taken to reach out to those people and to make them feel safe and secure. So, what are the dangers of social isolation? Well, we know that one of the social determinants of health is socialization, having a strong support system, having people around you who care about you. And what happens when that isn't there? Well, people typically have low self-esteem. If they have depression or anxiety, it can accentuate those. Again, the more people are excluded, the more they lack a social support network. So this can lead to self-medication. I don't feel well, so I'll either drink or use some drugs or smoke or overeat or other harmful behaviors that I'm taking to compensate for the fact that I don't feel welcome or included in any outgoing. And finally, particularly for LGBTQ seniors who over the years heard from the medical community that same-sex attraction is an illness, they may not have a really great view of the medical system. So there is a tendency among some to resist seeking medical treatment until they have no choice but to. So you or I might say, well, this is a bit of a nasty cough. Maybe I better go and see the doctor. Someone who is feeling really excluded, isolated, and marginalized might say, I'll wait until I can't breathe anymore, then I'll go and seek medical attention. So when they do seek medical attention, that condition is far more advanced, takes much more intensive treatment. So how do we beat that? And we go for creating inclusive environments. And marginalized people frequently do something called scan for safety. And they may shut down or self-exclude if they don't perceive safety. And the thing is about that, safety is subjective. So it doesn't matter how you feel about the situation. It really matters how the target or the marginalized person feels about that. So not feeling included leads to reduced participation in a negative environment. For housing operators and social centers, it's a matter of compliance with the law. We are supposed to be treating all people equal and to be including people no matter what their backgrounds are. And the other thing is that, if we can make an inclusive environment for those who are marginalized, it creates greater empathy and affirmation for all. And, it affects quality of life. Everyone, not just the marginalized, do better in a positive environment. Think of a time where you've walked into a room where people just finished an argument and everybody is mad at each other. And, for me, I set a land record trying to get out of that room as quickly as possible. I don't want to be around negative people. So I think that's why, those are some of the reasons that it's so important to create an inclusive environment. One of the ways of doing that is to become an ally. And what is an ally and how do you be one? So an ally is just somebody who says, I am committed to giving equal treatment and equal attention and equal love to anybody, no matter what their race, their religion, their ethnicity, their sexuality is. And how we do it is just by being empathetic. by being affirming. And affirming is also a continuum, or acceptance is also a continuum. You know, you can be tolerated, you can be accepted, or you can be affirmed. I know what it's like to be tolerated, in some cases barely tolerated. um, Accepted is fine, but somebody saying to me, instead of just saying I accept you for who you are, it's really nice for somebody to say, yeah, and I value who you are. I think it's important that you are who you are, how you interact with the community. So those are some of the ways that safe interventions. If you hear of someone acting in a non-inclusive manner, trying to bring attention to that and to suggest to them that perhaps they might want to look at the world in a different way, and advocating. If you know that somebody in your seniors housing unit or in your senior center is being treated unfairly, to advocate for them. And all of this has to happen organically. You know, if somebody is already feeling socially excluded, and somebody starts saying, "God darn it, I'm going to defend you," and make a very large public fuss, sometimes the person who was feeling excluded feels even more excluded. So it's a question of being effective advocacy and making safe interventions. So part of that is respectful conversations. And when we talk about the first one is listen. And this one is listen to hear, not to respond or rebut. And I can remember years and years ago was on the debating team, and I would be listening to my opponents speaking. And as they were speaking, I was thinking, oh boy, let me write that down. I'll hit them hard with a fact about that. I'll hit them hard with a fact about that. That's listening to respond. And it's very, very different from listening to hear. So be quiet and to try to absorb what the person has said, and then reflect on what they said. And, you know, a casual reflection. If somebody says something that really touches a hot point for me, responding back with a very harsh, aggressive tone may not be effective. And it might also further create a division in the conversation. So respectful, well, people have the right to different opinions, no matter politically or, you know, certainly that's something that we've seen a lot over the last few years, is huge political differences causing one person to say, I hate you because this, or I hate you because of that, where in fact, they're just holding a different point of view. And that hopefully that view doesn't affect how their relationship with you should be. POV, or point of view. That we all have different experiences that have shaped us how we grew. I can empathize, but I'll never be able to appreciate what it's like to be refused service because of my color. So I need to respect for somebody who has experienced that. If they're feeling very nervous or timid about going into a new location, I need to respect their point of view, to say their experience has not been the same with mine, so I can understand why they might be more nervous in that situation. Power, well, power dynamics change with an individual's identities. You know, for myself, I'm a white male. I've experienced privilege all my life. And I sometimes project that. If I'm talking to somebody who has been marginalized all their life, I might just overtalk them because of what I'm used to, and they may not respond to me because they don't perceive having a power equal to mine. So we really need to be careful when we're talking to people about the power differentials that might exist. And in and out, and that is, when somebody is saying something wrong, you can either call them in or call them out. Call them out, like I said, was saying perhaps loudly, that what you just said was extremely hurtful, and I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Calling them in is saying, let's talk about this. Let's understand why you made that statement, why you acted that way, and what we can do to change that, to try to ensure that you're going to hold positive conversations. So all of that, I guess I just talked nonstop here with a lot of throwing an awful lot of information at you. But I think what it boils down to is empathy and respect. Respecting what other people have gone through in their life and how that has shaped how they are now as a person. And having empathy to understand, to try to take that into account in all the conversations that you have with them. If someone is being socially excluded, perhaps try to find a way to bring them into the social situations or the conversations. Some people are naturally so shy, that social isolation piece is just hanging, that all it takes is the perception of, I'm not like everybody else here, maybe I don't belong here. All of those factors play into our conversations with everybody else. And really, that is it. We have some time for questions. If anybody does have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But aside from that, Amber, I will throw it back to you at this point.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for, just the wealth of information, but also just the vulnerability too, in which you shared. I think this is phenomenal for every single soul. So if you would like to ask Eric a question, you can do it in a couple different ways. We have a chat feature, which you'll see right at the very bottom of your Zoom toolbar. So you can type in a question that way, or also in the Q&A chat box. If you would like to ask a question just with audio, just feel free to click the little icon that says raise hand, and I can enable your microphone.
Well, I think we should be like in an auction, going once, going twice, going 3 times. If nobody has any questions, that's fine. I hope I presented some new information to you. I hope I presented something. It's a very, very big topic. So I hope that at least people have some things to consider when they're interacting in their community, whether that's a senior center, a community league, their neighborhood, or a residence that they might be living in. That idea of trying to bring people in, we've all experienced far too much. Every single senior has experienced negative things, and every single senior just wants to be treated with respect and made to feel included. And I do see. So Margaret asked, thank you, Eric. What if your prejudices cannot be quelled? What can you do? Well, that's a tough situation. And, we build experiences based on what's happened to us in the past. And if we've had a really negative experience, then we can build prejudices that are really difficult to overcome. And I think the only things that we can do is reflect on our experience to ask, how has this prejudice been generated in me? And if it was against a certain race or type of person or a religion, then ask openly the question, is everybody like that? And if they, and that has to be an honest question that you're asking, and it deserves an honest answer, because a friend of mine belongs to the Baptist church. They're the kindest, nicest person. But there's also an element of the Baptist church called the Westboro Baptists, who are the people who will have done absolutely horrible things for the queer community. They've picketed against at the grave, at the funerals of people who have passed away. And they continuously say, you know, you're sinning and you go to hell. Well, that's not all Baptists. That's one small sect. So how could I hold that opinion against this person who's just presented to me right now as saying a Baptist? And you know, what preconditions, what should I think about before this person actually opens their mouth? And the answer is, I should be keeping an open book, not to prejudge my relationship with this person based on the relationships I've had with any other people. Hope that's an answer to your question. Anybody else? Nope. Well, if there are no other questions, then I guess, Amber, we should probably wind this up. And I hope everybody is enjoying. I'm looking forward to one session this afternoon, how to thin out your collection of photographs, because they're about to overtake both my both my bookcases and my computer. So I'm interested in that. So I hope everybody is enjoying the seniors forum this week and are attending seminars that are of value to them. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for sharing and being with us today.